We're here at the Barclays Center where the Nets fell in the second time they met up with the Knicks this season, 111 to 104, so another loss for their crosstown rivals. Hi, I'm Dexter Henry, joined by the great writers of Nets Daily, Bryan, Fonseca, and Anthony Puccio, here with me to talk everything Knicks versus Nets. Guys, this was a game where we saw the Nets go down big early, down by as many as 18, but they came back furiously in the third, actually took the lead. But when you look at this game and this loss, once again, another loss to the Knicks in the season where we've seen some promise for the Nets, how disappointing is this loss, Bryan?
I mean, it kind of sucks because, again, it sucks if you're a Net fan, of course, but, you know, they've failed to close out some of these close games, and they're missing firepower down the stretch. D'Angelo Russell's hurt, Jeremy Lin's hurt. They also have Jahlil Okafor on the bench, and they had that 25-10 run that gave them the lead in the third quarter, but it didn't quite add up at the end. They didn't get the late buckets late. The Knicks were hitting all their shots late, especially some threes. Courtney Lee came up huge, and it just was too much for them, and they didn't score enough down the stretch. That's mainly what it was. It's like Hollis-Jefferson said after the game, buckets weren't there to be had down the stretch. So that's
kind of been the story, Pooch, that there weren't buckets down the stretch. And you look at the Nets' three-point shooting, a lot was made of that after the game. We talked to some of the players and heard Coach Atkinson talk about that. 28% shooting from downtown for the Nets on the night. That's generally not going to get it done. Was it a function of the Nets taking bad shots, or were they getting good looks and just not making them?
I think the Knicks have played the Nets very well on the perimeter the last two games that the two teams have played. But, you know, you're talking about a team that was playing without Porzingis in the second half. You got to drive the ball into the paint. Instead, you know, they took 22 more three-pointers than the Knicks. They took 42 on the night, and they still only hit 2 more than the Knicks. So, you know, it's a product of probably forcing the issue and not adjusting as the game goes on. And I think that's been a big issue for the Nets this season.
There were some bright spots, Nets fans, in this game, though. We had a career night from Hollis-Jefferson scoring 25 points. Spencer Dinwiddie had an excellent all-around game, 26 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Really strong game there. What do you make of that? Is there any hope for players, you know, for fans, if you want to say, looking at these players and saying, hey, this is some of our young core that's stepping up, they're putting up good numbers, they're playing in a big-time matchup against the Knicks. Is that encouraging for the fan base and the team?
Yeah, I mean, for Hollis-Jefferson in particular, he's somebody who's become a legitimate 15 points per game type of scorer who the Nets, you watch the games, they're dumping the ball right where we're standing right here. They're dumping the ball to him. He's turning around, facing guys, taking jumpers, Dirk-like fadeaways, driving in on people, getting contact, making 80% of his free throw shots.
With confidence.
Yeah, so he's doing all those things. This is something that people were hoping for last year. People were trying to see, like, hey, you know, they wanted to trade him, basically, if this didn't manifest, and now you're looking at him as a legitimate offensive threat. And as far as Spencer Dinwiddie goes, like, I mean, we were talking about this during the game. Like, he could be one of the NBA's most improved players.
Absolutely.
And he had a big night again. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, with those losses, these are the kind of positives you take away from if you're the Nets, because you're missing a lot of guys due to injuries, but you have 2 of your young stars, so to speak, have standout games like this. That's at least the good part of it.
Pooch, as we look ahead, do you take anything from that? The Nets obviously have a game tomorrow, right back at it in Toronto, and then they have 3 home games next week. Do you take any positive out of this game, anything that you can see that they can build on?
I mean, look, they got to close out games, and that's been their biggest problem all season. That was their problem last season. They lost 12 games by 5 points or less last season. So, you know, it's tough to take the positives out of a game like this where they probably should have had with Tim Hardaway Jr. out, with Porzingis sitting out in the second half.
All right, good point.
But, you also got to consider Allen Crabbe is 3 of 20 from 3 in the last 2 games. So, you know, they're really struggling from 3-point range in the last 2 games, and that's their forte. So if they can't hit that 3 ball and teams are adjusting at the perimeter against them, you know, they're going to be in for some tough matchups.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to ask you guys real quick before we get out of here with this recap. We're past the quarter point of the season now, and the Nets have played a bunch of games. What do you make of this team? They're sort of hanging around on the edge outside of playoff contention. Can you see them playing their way into that? Or do the things that both of you had said have to get better? And I think the fan base wants to see get better as well. Do those things have to happen if they're going to be legit, true playoff contenders?
They do, along with, and I'm sure you would agree with this, but they need to get healthy also. So
Right.
They're kind of waiting on D'Angelo Russell. They're kind of waiting on, whether or not Jahlil Okafor, and let's not forget Nick Stauskas, because he was part of that trade too, although I'm not sure what you're going to expect of him at this point. But you're still waiting on some things to manifest, so to speak. But as Pooch alluded to, you have to win these close games, because really the difference is, instead of being 11-17 now, you win 3 of those games, you're a 500 team, and then all of a sudden you're the 8th spot. So you got to close out some of these games regardless of who's out there, because they've done it. They've done it against Cleveland, for example. The Cavs with Spencer Dinwiddie having a career night. So they've done it. It's just a matter of doing it consistently. And teams that aren't very good struggle to do that consistently. They're still trying to prove that they're a good team, but tonight wasn't their night, and they've had some off nights.
And lastly, Pooch, what's your assessment of the team at this point in the season, and what you think they can do going forward?
Look, Bryan makes a good point. They aren't healthy right now. They're missing Jeremy Lin. They're missing D'Angelo Russell. Jahlil Okafor hasn't played. Stauskas hasn't played. But at the same time, you could also look at it from a different perspective. This team talks a lot about continuity. And, Spencer Dinwiddie is coming at the point, and he's played really, really well. Obviously, as we know, he's averaging 15 points, 7 assists as a starter. So, the flow of the offense seems right. Aside from these last 2 games, the offense seems like it's running well. The defense is getting better, but you wonder, with D'Angelo Russell coming back, with Jahlil Okafor coming into the lineup, does that kind of affect things in a negative light? Do they have to adjust? Right. Or is it that these guys come in and help and provide a spark? So I think it could go either way. I think continuity is so important with a young group like this, but again, we'll have to see. I think they could stick around 4 or 5 games when D'Angelo comes back. Jahlil gets accustomed to the rotation, whatever that is. Maybe they'll make it a little more interesting than we anticipated before the season.
Well, we'll definitely see. It's going to be interesting to see how the Nets fare as they move on. As I said, next game is a road game in Toronto, then 3 games at home next week. So the Nets get to feast a little bit more on some home cooking, and we'll see if they can get some more wins here at the Barclays Center. That's a wrap. Nets fall in the second matchup with the Knicks this season, 111-104 here at the Barclays Center. They'll look to bounce back tomorrow. That's it from the Barclays Center. For the great writers from Nets Daily, they give you the best coverage on the Brooklyn Nets. Anthony Puccio, Bryan Fonseca, I'm Dexter Henry, signing off. Till next time on NetsDaily.com.